I wanted to do a video about the common questions I get about Ronins and master wheels. I get a lot of text, random text from friends. Hey, this is happening. What do I do? Why isn't it connecting? Why is it dropping out? I just want to kind of cover a few of those things in no particular order, and then a couple tips as well for using wheels with the Ronin and then operating in single operator mode. It's a very easy tip that'll help you become a better operator. And it's not like a clickbaity thing. That's actually, it's something I do that's very easy that makes a world of a difference with how this behaves. Okay, so first let's talk about connectivity, right? You have a couple ways to connect the master wheels to the Ronin. One being this receiver, the other one using the internal receiver that's built into the Ronin. So you have two ways. This one, although they recommend it, usually to me causes more problems than it solves. The good thing is you can get it up high, so if you have bodies in the way or it's panned in a certain way where the receiver is actually obstructed, then this can help. But if that's not a problem, I've just had a lot of issues with these. You do have a frequency change on the receiver itself, 2.4 to 5.8. I always do a switch if I'm having issues to see if that helps, because sometimes it's interference from other things on set. The problem here is they don't make these antennas anymore. So if you break it, you have to find one on eBay or I don't know where else, but you can't get it on DJI store or B&H or anything. They come with this cable that likes to fray a lot. Again, can be problems anywhere along this chain. So I've bought a lot of new ones of these, and I'll sometimes switch them out. If I have a problem, I'll just switch to a new one, and that sometimes fixes it. Or I'll just, like I said, go to the internal receiver. Now to bind these, go into gimbal, setting, hit bind. On this end, you'll hold the bind button when it's plugged into the Ronin. They'll link up, you'll be good to go. Now, if you want to bind to the internal, you have to go to the back of the Ronin, go to setting, go to bind remote, hit that on there, it'll bind. Now the one thing you have to make sure to do, once it's bound, it'll say binding successful or binding complete, and on the Ronin side, it'll say recommended to use the DJI external receiver. You have to hit OK. If you don't hit OK, the wheels won't do anything, and it'll just be like frozen. So you got to make sure to hit OK. Now, if you really want a foolproof solution, the kind of only option you have with the master wheels is to get this and this. This is the DJI transmission. This is the receiver, goes on the Ronin side. This is the transmitter, goes by the wheels. The transmitter plugs in with the included cable or any kind of one of these normal DJI cables. Plug it into here. You also need this breakout box. That does not come with this monitor. I also like to get this Tilta Gold mount plug just to put an Anton Bauer on the back here instead of their little DJI batteries. Now, this transmitter, plug into the DC out. Make sure you have the latest firmware on this or it won't work. And you also have to set this to a different mode. Now, they've conveniently not put a menu option to change it to a different mode. So what you have to do is go into your wheels, go to custom, and then custom C1 or one of the custom buttons, which is on the left side. You have to set one of those to switch. Kind of a weird label for it, but set it to switch, and then when you hit that button, it'll switch the modes. At least they could have called it like mode switch or something. But now when you hit C1, it'll cycle through Ronin, S-Bus, and Ronin 4D. If it doesn't show Ronin 4D, it's a firmware problem, you gotta upgrade them. Once it's on Ronin 4D mode, this was kind of meant to work with the 4D initially, but then they released this, so now it can work with the normal Ronin. Once it's in 4D mode, you're good to go. Make sure this is paired to that. I'm not going to go over that. That's another thing, but generally straightforward to figure out. Then you'll take another cable, plug it into here. Make sure you don't do male to male. It is possible to plug that in because the pins will kind of slide out away from each other. Got to go female to male. Now this has to be plugged into the power hub down here or the other bottom port. You can't plug it in up here. So sometimes you think, oh, it's nice. I can just put this up high, plug it in there, good to go. I don't need to run any cables. So you either have to mount this in here. I like the Ignite Digi accessory mount. That's a really handy way to do it. And then plug that in. That, you'll be good to go. When I first tried this, I tried it up here and I was troubleshooting a bunch of stuff and I just had to plug it in down there. Now, if you do want to rig it up high, you can take the Axis extension cable that comes with the master wheels, same plugs on either side, and you can mount this up high, and then run that cable down. So I've done that as well. This boasts 20,000 feet of range. I've really never had a problem with it. It always punches through walls just fine, and you also get the benefit of video. We usually run a Teradek as well, but it's just nice to have the option to have a monitor. This also has the added benefit of having a force controller, or like a mimic controller built in. You can turn that on and you can pan, tilt, roll the Ronin just with this. Pretty nifty. Now, the thing I was saying earlier about that one tip to kind of make you a better operator, the secret there is the tuning parameter called strength. If you're a Movi person, that's called hold strength, and on the Ronin, it's just called strength. And what that's going to do is, basically the short of it, if you're operating the wheels, I go strengths at 15 to 20. If you're single operating, I go below 10 to like 8, 6, 5 range. One thing to know is if you auto-tune, the auto-tune resets strengths to 10 across the board. So if you're doing auto-tuning and you're liking higher or lower strengths, you have to make sure and go set those again. I've forgotten to do that before, where I've set it for wheels, somebody auto-tune or I'll auto-tune, and then it'll feel kind of off. But basically what that's going to do is it's going to make the head snappier when you raise them. And when you lower them on the single operator side, it's going to make it a lot more natural, a lot more kind of fluid and predictable, less robotic. I find the stock Ronin settings to be really robotic. Coming from a Movi world years ago, they were always really good with natural movement, and that's kind of the only way I've found to mimic how the Movi feels. So I'll show you a low strength. You have this kind of sloppy feeling head. I don't know if you'll be able to see it in the video. And then I'm going to raise that up to like 20. And you get a super snappy head. This is like, feels more like a Libra head or a Matrix head. These like, $200,000 remote heads, right? So you have a really one-to-one feel there. And I'll bring it back to 10, the default setting. And it's subtle, but you really notice, especially on long lenses and a high pressure scenario, that extra 10 on strength is really going to help. Harder to kind of show the single operator example. I just have this metal brick on here. It's like my training weight. I got to set up a way to get the FX3 on there and then also have kind of some balance weight. I have to think about that one. But just trust me, if you have a Ronin, play around with it. It's going to help a lot. Also, if you've ever broken this little lever up here that secures the dovetail to the ring, it happens a lot. There's actually a replacement for this that's a solid stainless steel version, which I have on here from 1A Tools, my buddy Connor. It's a one-to-one swap of this part, so you don't have to send your whole rig in, and you actually get a better part at the end of it. So check out his website as well. I think it's about $130, well worth it. I've done all my Ronins, and I have like 5. If you don't want to have to mount this big thing on your Ronin and you still want long range, I know some of you know what I'm going to say, get yourself some of these inertia wheels from Noto Film. These are 900 megahertz, so very long range, long wavelength, and the receiver is really small. So this just Velcros on the back and plugs into the D-bus on the side, and you get like thousands and thousands of feet of range. And you can put bigger antennas on here. You can optimize both sides, bigger antennas here. And then of course you get their inertia motors, so you can set the mass and the drag digitally, plus a ton of other cool kind of motion control features, handheld emulation, and they're always updating them. So I also have a 10% off code for these. I'm not allowed to give it out publicly, but if you send me a message on Instagram, I'll send it to you. It's 10% off for the wheels, and then I also get a kickback, so I'd appreciate it if you're thinking about these to use my code. Another thing to watch out with the Ronins and Master Wheel combo, if you ever see a Ronin do something like that, see a little twitch, I'm physically doing it with the roll trim right now, but what it is, if your roll trim isn't centered perfectly, or it gets bumped or whatever, just slightly and kind of gets stuck, the Ronin likes to, it doesn't really know where the roll trim's at, so it'll hop from 0, which is level, to like a value of 1 and back and forth. So if it ever does this randomly, go to your roll trim, just take it all the way one direction and center it, and just try and get it in the middle of that little detent. And that should make it go away. If it still doesn't go away, like if you can't consistently get it in the middle, you can go to Wheels, Setting, go over to Roll, and just set left and right to 0, so that it will actually limit how much the Ronin will take in input. So like I have it set to right 0, It won't go any further than that, but it'll still go left to 30 degrees, but it won't go beyond 0 onto the right. So that's a way you can fix that. Now that means you won't get roll control to the right or left, but if it's causing problems, that's a way to fix it. And if you're a Ronin owner and you don't have these already, these are available on my website. They mount right here, and they give you a straight handle out either side, which frees up your pan range. So with the ring, you're always going to hit here and here. With straight handles, you can go pan 360. It leaves your dovetail open. So if you want to mount to a crane or a jib or something, you don't have to remove the ring and the monitors. You just leave the handles on. They're easy to dock, and they're compatible with my extension handles. Goes like that. This will go into a ready rig, a slingshot, and also a new rig that I'm working on, as well as anti-gravity. The hook's available on the site, and you get this great boom range and extension to get those low shots or high shots, or I even just do it like this 45 degrees. So the lens is like this. I can trim it either way. I can shoot under the handles. So if I'm arcing around somebody, I trim the Ronin and I'll just walk forward and orbit them. So these are a great tool to have. I just redesigned these. I added an Airy 3/8 here and Airy 3/8 there, so you can put a monitor on here. You don't need a clamp or anything like that. And then I'm also going to have some extensions. If you want to make these longer, they'll be kind of stackable plugs you can put in. Those are still on their way. But yeah, Sparrow clamps, made these about 5 years ago when I went to Ronin from Movi, because the only thing available came off of up here. And it just felt like a really tall system. I was having to reach up really high to get the lens up higher. So I built these that are as low as possible to the pan bar, so that it just barely goes underneath. And that way you're holding as close to the lens as possible while still maintaining like the ability to pan left and right at 90 degrees. I also make this really cool rod bracket. It's universal. It'll go on the Ronin base plates, Movi, Ignite Digi, Cindy-milled, all of them. Comes with all the screws. It's super rigid, uses bigger screws that don't strip. It's also a lens support, so if you buy two, you can use one as a lens support, one as your rod bracket. Great for those ingenue zooms and stuff like that. Great dog bone too, just to I usually put these rods coming off of here and I'll mount that there and kind of do a Light Ranger bracket or mount my Teradek off of it. So in a way, it's also an accessory mount. It's got some threaded holes on there. Super handy. These are available on my store as well. I'm also going to do a 20% off coupon for anybody watching this video. That'll be up for about a month from posting. And then stay tuned for a new product we have. Not quite ready to show it yet. Waiting on some patents, but I'm really excited about it because I think a lot of people are going to be able to use it. It's a little less niche than some of this stuff I've made. So as soon as I can say more about that, I'll definitely be making a video. On a side note, I'm also trying to learn to fly airplanes right now. It's been kind of a fun project I've been studying the last about month and a half, doing some flight lessons and everything. Not sure where that's going to take me, but I've always wanted to fly and felt like now was a good time. Not now because it's raining. I actually had to cancel my lesson today, but we'll see. Maybe do some vlogs from the air. Comment, like, subscribe, do all the things. Thanks for watching. Bye.